Good evening, I'm Esther Gido. It's Tuesday, June 4th. This is Africa 54. Human rights groups worry about what they say are crackdowns targeting Zimbabwean activists. The Sudanese military calls for snap elections amid continuing protests to hand over power to a civilian administration. And with life-saving surgery for a mother and daughter from Zanzibar, an Israeli NGO fixes 2 generations of heart defects. We begin tonight in Southern Africa, where there's a growing concern in Zimbabwe by rights organizations over what they say is a crackdown by the government of President Emmerson Mnangagwa against opposition activists. This side of 7 activists were detained upon returning home from a conference in the Maldives. Rights groups fear the government is adopting the same hardline tactics used by former President Robert Mugabe. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare.
Makomborora Reservation leaves Zimbabwe's maximum security prison, where he was visiting the 7 detained activists who are being held on treason charges. He is a family friend of one of them, 37-year-old Tatenda Mombeyarara.
It's a baseless charge. It's just a charge which they are using to justify the crackdown on human rights defenders and civil society in Zimbabwe. But the reality on the ground is the economy, it's in tatters. Timbers within the country are high. So the government now, in order to throw fear, to intimidate the people into pacify them, they are going for opposition people, they are going for leading civil society organizations and top human rights defenders in order to, to pacify them in case of any planned peaceful mass action.
Zimbabwe's Justice Minister Ziyambe has told VOA that the government will not comment on the allegation because the matter is before the court. The 7 were arrested last month at Harare's International Airport as they returned from attending a workshop in the Maldives. Prosecutors accused the 7 of traveling to the Maldives for training in tactics to topple the government. If found guilty, they could be sentenced to up to 20 years in prison. Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights is hopeful that the High Court will release them on bail.
We believe that these people did not commit any crime or any offense. According to Zimbabwe's law, they enjoy several of their fundamental rights, and we believe that this is just one case of the several cases which we have seen a couple of years of the government going down on the work of civil society.
Arresting opposition figures was a common tactic used by longtime President Robert Mugabe during his 38 years in power, which ended in 2017. Groups like Human Rights Watch now accuse President Emmerson Mnangagwa of resorting to the same tactic as public anger at the failing economy grows stronger. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Harare.
Sudan's military leaders have made an abrupt reversal, deciding to cancel what they had previously agreed to with protesters about the country's transition and called for elections within 9 months, according to General Abdel Fattah al-Burhani. Al-Burhani says the election will take place under, quote, regional and international supervision. Monday's announcement came after Sudan's military forcibly broke up a weeks-long sit-in outside Khartoum's army headquarters that left more than 30 people dead. Demonstrators want a quick handover of power to a civilian administration. A spokesman for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he condemned the actions of the Sudanese security forces.
He is alarmed by reports that security forces have opened fire inside medical facilities. The Secretary General reminds the Transitional Military Council of its responsibility for the safety and security of the citizens of Sudan. He urges all parties to act with the utmost restraint.
protest organizers have suspended further talks with the Transitional Military Council and called for civil disobedience across the country until the military hands over power to civilians. The UN Secretary General also called on Sudanese authorities to conduct an independent investigation and hold people accountable for the sit-in deaths. Meanwhile, the United Nations Rights Agency spokeswoman Ravina Shamdasani on Tuesday called on Sudanese security forces to halt attacks on Khartoum protest camps and allow for negotiations for a transition to civilian-led power to continue.
Instead of targeting the protest leaders, we call on the Transitional Military Council to reach out to them again for a renewed negotiation and a discussion about how to manage the transition of Sudan to a civilian-led administration. The human rights grievances that led to the protest in the first place will not go away if the military simply decides to impose its own election schedule. There needs to be a discussion about the grievances that sparked the protest in the first place if any transition in Sudan is to be sustainable and peaceful.
The UN agency says the human rights grievances that led to the protest in the first place will not go away if the military simply decides to impose its own election schedule. Now, Cameroon's forest tribes have long depended on insects to supplement their diet. The palm weevil grub, a fat worm found in palm trees, is such a popular source of protein that it has swarmed from the forest into the villages and even urban restaurants. Moki Edwin Kinzeka has this report narrated by Anne Nzwankeu in Yaoundé.
In Cameroon's capital, some unusual ingredients are wiggling into city kitchens. At Le Cercle Municipal Restaurant, Chef Emile Ngulu cooks palm weevil grubs to create dishes of international standard.
They are the best protein that exists. We have not even finished making an inventory of all of the benefits we obtain by eating the palm tree worms.
For people used to eating meat and fish, finding worms in a plate of food can be a shock. But the palm weevil grub can also be a pleasant surprise.
Le service est très bien fait.
The service is very well done. It's well prepared. We're enjoying it. I hadn't seen this way of cooking yet, but this is great.
The high demand from chefs has led to short supplies of palm weevil grubs, but villagers who used to gather the grubs in the forest see it as an opportunity to farm the worms for restaurants.
When we raise worms in the village, it is less painful. It is more profitable, and here you spend less energy.
People eat palm weevil in other African countries and in South America and Southeast Asia. The growing popularity of the grub in Cameroon has made it several times more expensive than meat.
When we do gastronomy in Cameroon, we need authentic, natural, organic, and precious ingredients. And I often like to say that the palm tree worm is the equivalent in Africa of caviar in Europe.
As its reputation grows in restaurants, the palm weevil grub also remains a popular food in Cameroon's villages and markets. For Anne-Mireille Zouanke Moki, Edwin Kinzeka, for VOA News, Yaoundé.
The huge Smithsonian institution is soon getting a new leader, the first insider and African-American. Lonnie Bunch, the founding director of the Smithsonian's popular National Museum of African-American History and Culture here in Washington, D.C., will become the new secretary on June 16th. Here's VOA's Deborah Block.
The founding director of the Smithsonian Museum about African-American history will become the 14th secretary to lead the world's largest museum, education, and research complex. As the head of 19 museums and the National Zoo, Bunch called the move humbling and exciting and said his time at the African-American Museum will serve him well.
It is something that had never crossed my mind to do, but it also makes me feel good because I get to give back to the institution I care the most about, the Smithsonian.
Bunch has served in 3 Smithsonian museums, where he says he has touched upon all aspects of the Smithsonian. Traditionally, the secretaries of the Smithsonian have been scientists from outside the organization. Bunch said he was pleased that an insider like himself, who is a historian and curator, was selected.
I wasn't even sure when they asked me to go for this job that they'd hire somebody like me, that they'd hire an insider.
But it was the Museum about African American history that thrust him at the forefront, building it from the ground up and opening it in 2016.
We felt it was crucial to craft a museum that would help America remember and confront its tortured racial past.
Another Smithsonian museum is also dedicated to a minority group, the Native American. Kevin Gover, the head of the museum, says Bunch has impeccable credentials, and he is pleased to see a person of color in charge of all the museums.
It is momentous that the Smithsonian for the first time has at the head of the organization a person of color. It's been a very, in some ways, conservative and very white institution in its leadership throughout its existence.
Well, my whole career has been about kicking down doors and breaking ceilings and trying to help people understand that both African American culture and African Americans are central to who we are as Americans. My hope is that this will give people a sense of optimism and hope.
Gover says he expects the new secretary will continue to find ways to connect the diversity among the various museums.
We are experts here at my museum on the Native American perspective. But if we tell a story without considering the African American perspective or the European American perspective or the Asian American perspective, we have not done as complete a job as we should have.
Bunch says no matter what happens, the Smithsonian will always be that place to help us understand a diverse America. Deborah Block, VOA News, Washington.
Muslims worldwide are marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Here are some wishes from those celebrating Eid in Somalia.
Words cannot describe how happy I am today. I share happiness with all Muslim people around the world, particularly Somali people. And I can say this is the best Eid that we have never seen. And I say congratulations to all Muslims around the world.
I would like to congratulate the Somali people across the world on the occasion of Eid, and I wish them all the best. May Allah bless you and bless your homes and your families and your beloved ones. I hope for the Somali people everywhere in the world much prosperity, happiness, forgiveness, and God's blessing. I wish you all the best, and I pray God bless you all wherever you are.
Those were some of the Muslims celebrating Eid in Somalia. Now, U.S. Border Patrol agents assigned to the Eagle Pass, Texas station apprehended a group of 37 undocumented immigrants from Central Africa on Saturday, according to the Del Rio Sector Chief Patrol Agent Raul Ortiz. On June 1st, agents performing line watch operations arrested a group of 37 undocumented immigrants from the Republic of the Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo after they illegally entered the United States by crossing the Rio Grande River. The group was composed almost entirely of family units, including several small children. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the link between premature birth and heart disease. We'll be right back.
Arabic, it is the beat. The African beat that counts. The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Starring by Ted Gibson in West Hollywood, California, has turned the traditional hair salon model upside down, creating a place where trim meets tech. Celebrity stylist Ted Gibson boasts a client list that includes Lupita Nyong'o. Clients get their hair done in one of 5 semi-private pods called Clouds. These allow for privacy and are meant to replace the bustling hair salon where rows of people are lined up staring in the same mirror. The pods are equipped with an Amazon Fire tablet, an Amazon video application, and Sonos smart speakers, which allow clients to shop, order products from the salon, ask Alexa to change the music and ambient lighting, and watch movies. Next up, among the exhibits being presented here at the annual conference of the American Alliance of Museums is new technology designed to help the blind see art and pictures. Members of the National Federation of the Blind were among those in New Orleans to try out the three-dimensional images on display that featured raised subjects, varying textures, and audio accompaniments. Various displays included a war scene, musical art painting, and historical paintings. Also on display, a more functional example of the technology's use, a university campus map. And that's what's trending today.
British Prime Minister Theresa May and U.S. President Donald Trump held a brief press conference Tuesday following their bilateral talks in London. Trump and First Lady Melania arrived at the Prime Minister's residence at number 10 Downing Street Tuesday, where they were greeted by May and posed for pictures. The two had met earlier in the day at a business roundtable where both leaders expressed confidence they could arrive at a substantial trade deal. Meanwhile, across London, thousands of protesters had a much less friendly greeting for the visiting president. Demonstrators carried signs and led anti-Trump chants, while the now infamous giant inflatable Trump baby floated nearby. Both May and Trump say Britain and the United States could expand their economic partnership with a bilateral trade deal. Trump is pursuing new trade arrangements with a number of major U.S. trade partners, including China, with a stated goal of making terms more friendly to the United States. President Trump enjoyed pomp and pageantry on the first day of his state visit to Britain, where Queen Elizabeth hosted a royal banquet for him at Buckingham Palace. Yet Trump waded into controversy with comments on Brexit and perceived insults of London Mayor Sadiq Khan. VOA White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara reports from London.
A royal welcome for President Donald Trump on his state visit to Britain by Her Majesty the Queen. The day of pageantry included an inspection of the Guard of Honor and laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Westminster Abbey as part of 75 years' remembrance of D-Day. Ending the day with a royal state banquet.
Of course, it is not only our security which unites us, but our strong cultural links and shared heritage.
To the eternal friendship of our people, the vitality of our nations, and to the long-cherished and truly remarkable reign of Her Majesty the Queen,
where Trump's adult children were also invited. State visits are supposed to be about pomp and pageantry, but even before he arrived at Buckingham Palace, President Trump has waded into diplomatic complications, offering remarks on the touchy subject of Brexit, including voicing support for Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, potentially bringing even more embarrassment to Prime Minister Theresa May, who will be resigning in just a few days. May is leaving after failing to negotiate a Brexit deal that Parliament could ratify. Trump called on Britain to leave the EU without a deal if Brussels refuses to meet its demands.
President Trump has given his wholehearted support for Brexit and for a U.S.